Hello, this is Salon from the blog Spiritual Living for Busy People, and I am coming to you live, this time from a different setting. I'm at home, um, and I happen to be in the closet. It's not as big as it looks, um, but I'm home with the family. The kids are home, everyone's home. So um, if you hear kids in the background, if you hear stuff banging around, it's just the kids. They're okay. Um, so welcome, and I would like to get started with a little bit of an exercise to help us relax. Um, the subject for today is all about releasing negative energy. Um, so I'm going to share some thoughts about that. But first, I want to start off with an exercise. So I'm going to start by taking a few moments to breathe and become aware of our breath. And what I would like you to do now at this point is to gently roll the head to the left side, tense it a little bit, and then release, and then down, hold it for a minute, and then to the side, all the while breathing, taking good deep breaths. And then let's tense our shoulders, bring it up to your ear, and then release. And we can do that a second time. And maybe you could take your fist and clench it like this. Just clench it and then release. And you can do that with your other hand and release. And then we can breathe and hold and release. And hold again and release. I'm just going to check something here. how are you doing? How are you feeling? And so maybe some of you may be experiencing grief in a number of ways. It may be manifesting itself through sadness, irritability, lack of focus, um, or becoming losing, becoming short-tempered, or even lacking motivation to do things, to have goals. And some people may also be having survivor's guilt. So thinking, if you're reasonably doing well, if you're happy, if you're not sick, if you have work, then you may feel survivor's guilt, a type of survivor's guilt for um, relatives, people closer to you who may not be doing so well, or even strangers who may not be doing so well. So there's all these mixed feelings and emotions at this time. Of course, feeling survivor's guilt, um, for those who've died. So people who have suffered, who have died, you may be alive and well and may be struggling with that. So there are all kinds of feelings that we have that we may feel we don't have a lot of time for, but in order to be able to go through life and be able to manage ourselves, we need to be able to deal with these emotions as they come up. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So when I was thinking about what I was going to talk about here, I thought of a book that I read not too long ago, and you're going to have to excuse me on the title of this book. It's from a writer, a blogger named Mark Manson, and he wrote a book called Everything is Effed, and I edited that. Everything is Effed, a book about hope. I have mixed feelings about Mark Manson's work. I think he's a brilliant writer and distills a lot of sort of offbeat, non-conventional wisdom on personal development. But he uses a lot of colorful language. But his I find his ideas to be very, very compelling, and the ways that he shares them. And he talks about the two different types of brains that we all have. And in doing this, he draws on the work of people like Daniel Kahneman and his work, Thinking Fast and Slow. It makes it pretty accessible. But we have two types of brains. One is the thinking brain, and the other is the feeling brain. So the thinking brain is the brain that's rational. It's the brain that knows how to plan and execute on that plan. It's the brain that's good at math and good at science, knows how to reason, knows how to think through things, knows how to plan and execute, as I said. And, we value, the thinking brain has a lot of skills that we value in our society. Then we have the feeling brain. And the feeling brain is the part that's filled with all the emotions, all the mushy stuff, feelings and emotions, and it's kind of associated with more impulse activity, you know, spur of the moment, kind of just, you know, doing what feels good in the moment. So, you know, tends to be a little bit short term, um, doing things in the moment because it feels good. That's typically um, how that works. Whereas the thinking brain is more long term, planning, having a vision, executing on that vision. Okay, so we have two brains, right? And in his book, he imagines us, our consciousness, as being like a car. So it's called the consciousness car. The consciousness car drives down the road, and it has these two passengers, the thinking brain and the feeling brain. And in our society, most of us would think the way that conventional wisdom um, works with this is that we think that the thinking brain is driving. The thinking brain is the driver of this car, whereas the feeling brain is just a passenger. But it's the thinking brain that's navigating our lives. That's how we like to think about it. Mark Manson says, actually, the feeling brain is the driver of the car. The thinking brain is the passenger. And the feeling brain has all the control. The thinking brain can only suggest and try to convince the feeling brain where to go, because the thinking brain has done all the research. It knows where to go. It's reasoned everything out, and it basically has to convince the feeling brain, maybe sometimes begging and pleading with the feeling brain to go in a certain direction. But the feeling brain ultimately has the control, and it gets to go wherever it wants. And if it feels like it wants to go left, it goes left. If it wants to go right, it goes right. If it wants to careen off the road, it careens off the road. And it's the thinking brain's job to not let that happen. So the thinking brain is really like the navigator. So again, this is all Mark Manson's work that I'm trying to summarize here. That the thinking brain is like the navigator. It has the maps. It has, again, all the well-researched stuff. The feeling brain just does what it wants. And he says it's the feeling brain that's really in control. And that's something, when you hear that, it feels not very intuitive, or at least not right. But I think intuitive, when we think about it for a minute, right? And if we are honest, if we're able to kind of be honest and self-reflective, we can see, yeah, that's true. I would like the thinking brain to be the driver, but it's often the feeling brain that just does what it wants. And you know, he said it gets worse, because what happens is that because the thinking brain really has no control other than having well-reasoned arguments that would hopefully convince the feeling brain. The thinking brain often will find ways to justify decisions that the feeling brain has made already, as a way of keeping the peace. He talks about it as like a dysfunctional couple taking a road trip, and you could imagine that the man's driving, he's the feeling brain, and the wife in the passenger seat has the map and all the research and is, trying to navigate, but he just does what he wants, and so the passenger has to try to placate him somehow so that he doesn't drive off the road. We do that in our own brains, and the way that we do that, I would say two main ways that we do that. One way is that we rationalize. the choices that we made. So, hey, I'm on a diet. I've committed to cutting out, all sweets for the next 30 days. And one day I decide to go have an ice cream. I have the ice cream. I feel really bad. I feel badly that I broke this thing, but the thinking brain kicks in and says, well, you worked really hard. You stayed away for the first 10 days and you had a rough day, you know, so it's okay. I chose to do this because, I've been doing good and I've just decided to take a little break and reward myself with a little ice cream. So we often justify our thinking, our decision making. We try to rationalize it. Another strategy we use is that we blame. So let's say maybe I have a goal to not lose my temper, to not be quick tempered, and and then I tell someone off. And I say, well, it's your fault. If you didn't say that still silly thing, then I wouldn't have done that. So my thinking brain is justifying, um, you know, that reaction by saying, well, it's your fault. So that's kind of the dysfunctional relationship between thinking brain and feeling brain. Um, so they kind of reinforce each other. Um, so Mark Manson, his point was that we try to relegate feeling to something that is kind of second rate to thinking, when it's really feelings that is everything. And that's true for even the most I don't know, in control person that you can imagine. Someone who's well educated, has 3 PhDs, is so on. We tend to think, well, these are really wonderful, reasoned people, and they are wonderful. But as human beings, we're all really driven by emotion. Um, that's why it's called emotion, right? It's what gets us motivated. It's what moves us into action. Without emotions, we will never, we won't act. We won't be motivated to do anything. Actually, I think before he brings up this example about the consciousness car, um, and I didn't review this very much so, but Mark Manson talked about a guy who got a lobectomy. I forget what it's called, but basically, these surgeries that use a lobotomy. I think a lobotomy, where and I forget what I didn't research this, but where basically there's a brain surgery, and basically the result of the surgery is that a person's feel is disconnected from their feelings and their emotions. At least that's been the result of the surgery. And so you would think a person who has no feelings can just be a complete thinking machine. They can just do. They can plan, they can execute without having to deal with fear or worry or anxiety or any of those negative emotions that tend to hold us back and drag us down. Well, it turns out that in the book, the person who Mark Manson had used as an example, he just became a couch potato, basically. He lost motivation for anything, and he did nothing. Um, so this is an amazing thing that happened, because we tend to think, well, if I didn't have these silly feelings, that nothing would stop me. Where it's the opposite. We need our emotions and our feelings to it drives us. It makes us do things. So fear makes us run away from things. Um, Excitement makes us run toward things. So feelings are very important. They're here to stay. We just have to learn how to deal with our feelings, and so that's what we're here to talk about. we have to allow feelings. We have to first acknowledge that it's the feelings that's driving everything. And we need to have the feeling brain and the thinking brain basically sit down at a kitchen table, again, like a married couple looking to work things out. Sit down at the kitchen table and have a conversation. Talk to one another about what each of their needs are. I would say for the feeling brain, probably the number one thing is it needs to be recognized. It needs to be acknowledged. We don't acknowledge it. We push, we stuff things down, we stuff them away. All right, so that's thinking brain, feeling brain. Here's another idea I want to bring up before I kind of dive into, ways that we can manage our negative emotions. In times of stress, like we're living in now, in times of high stress, elevated stress, constant stress, or at least in times of any stress that we have, the normal response is for our body to produce hormones that prepare us for fight or flight. And I think many of us are well aware of this. Adrenaline and cortisol, the two, at least the two main hormones that we know about. There may be others involved. But these two hormones work together. They become elevated in the blood and they prepare our bodies for fighting or fleeing. Our heart rate increases, our blood pressure goes up, our blood sugar goes up. So we have fuel to burn so the muscles can burn the energy either to fight or to flee. At the same time, non-essential functions of the body are shutting down. So the digestive system shutting down, the immune system shutting down, and so on. So anything that is not relevant to fighting or getting away, the body suppresses and elevates those. The fear centers of the brain lights up so that we're in a heightened state to be able to know what's coming at us and to be able to spot danger. Okay, so as you know, our ancestors, when they were in the jungle, this was a good thing to have. If a predator was coming, the hormones kick in, we get into state, we fight or flee until we're out of danger, hormone levels come down, we go back to normal, right? That's the way it's intended to work. The problem is that in our modern life, and even long before this COVID crisis came into our lives, we know that we've been living with elevated stress. We know that a part of modern life is this elevated stress that we all experience constantly. So it's like kind of having the light switch on all the time. So we're living with constant high levels of cortisol in our blood. And so we are always in this state where we're heightened and prepared for a fight or running away from what? We don't quite know. It's not a lion, it's the electric bill. It's not a tiger, it's this disease that we're all trying to stay safe from. So we're in state, we're ready to fight or flee. It's just that we don't know how to fight or run away from these things. There's no place to go. There's no place to run. So the body gets stuck in these states. And of course, as I said, important functions of the body are shut down. So we're not able to relax. We're not able to get rest. I mean, we may lose sleep. You hear lots of people saying, they can't sleep at night. And it's all a result of this because our bodies are prepared in a state of fight or flight. If you're in a state of fight or flight, sleep is certainly something that you don't want happening. So that's why we're losing sleep. And of course, it's this vicious cycle because we need sleep in order to repair and to rejuvenate. And so we're not sleeping, we're not getting what we need. So we keep burning and burning and burning fuel until we get to empty, and then we get, burnout. So we burn out and we completely lose our ability to function, and to do everyday things. Um, and certainly when we're in this state where our brains are hijacked by fear, um, then the thinking brain, at this point, the thinking brain is kind of like thrown out of the car, right? So thinking brain, the consciousness car is barreling down, the freeway. The feeling brain is hijacked by fear, kicks into high gear, kicks out thinking brain, and it's just fear alone driving with no direction, no input from the thinking brain, no guidance. And so we're really in a state of danger at that point, physically, mentally, emotionally. Um, so this is what we're facing right now. All right. Many of us are, I would say, in that place or close to being in that place where thinking brain is on its way out. And we're trying hard. We're trying to keep things together, but um, you know, it's very hard in something as this, as what we're facing right now, because many of the coping strategies that we've had in the past, we don't have. So we're stuck at home and we have to adapt and adjust, and we have to deal with, unpaid bills, and we have to deal with children, their schooling, and we have to deal with, not catching the disease and giving it to a compromised family member, and we have to this and that, right? There's so many things. And we have to deal with the grief that we're experiencing, which many of us don't even know that it's grief. We just feel irritable all the time. And we don't even know what's happening to us because we don't even know it's grief. We think grief is maybe just when someone dies, but of course that is grief. But grief is loss of anything. So loss of on normal lives, right? On what we knew before. We've lost so many things. So there's grief on many, many levels. So that's what we're facing right now. Okay. But even in a time that is as challenging as this, we are not hopeless. We have what it takes to get through this. We have what it takes. We need each other, and we can do this. And I want to share something with you that I hope will be a help. So we have to have thinking brain and feeling brain come together to the coffee table and have an open-hearted conversation about how to navigate stress and how to release all the pent-up negative energy that we have in us. So I want to switch over here to something that I want to share with you, and I hope this works. Let's see. Let's give this a whirl. So what I have here is something called a care cycle. All right. And this care cycle was something that was introduced to my wife and me when we were in marriage counseling. So we were having to come together to work out our married lives at that point. And we were taught this model, which I think is very powerful. And I want to share this with you as a way that the thinking brain and the feeling brain can come together to understand each other and to learn to live together and to keep things from getting out of control. So, by the way, I have to give huge credit to my wife, who created this beautiful image. This isn't something that we got from the marriage intensive that we did. She created this out of the model that they taught us, and she did an incredible job. So this is from my wife, Laura, and You can check her out at her blog, which is printed at the bottom there, whattheredherring.com. So the first part of this cycle is the aware. So the aware box, we have to start with awareness. We have to start with the body, right? Again, this is something that doesn't come very naturally to us. We start with the head. we like thinking so much, we feel like we're like, we don't have anything from the neck down. We're always living inside of our heads, and it gets us into a lot of trouble. We ignore the cues of our bodies, physiological cues. So the first step, right, in helping to release negative emotions is to become aware of what your body is doing. Are your muscles tense? Is your face red? How is your heart? Is it beating fast? Again, all those signs of stress. Is your head ready to explode? Are you so upset? So what is your body doing? Become aware of that. The little meditation we did in the beginning is one way of really helping to figure out what the body is doing. When you tense different parts of your body and then relax, you can feel, oh wow, I didn't even know that there was a pain in my neck. Or because we're always living in our heads, we ignore what the body is doing until it gets to a critical point where we can't ignore it. So this allows us to just really tune into our bodies. What is it doing? Okay. By the way, those exercises in terms of tensing and releasing parts of the body, you can do that for your face as well. Kind of, you can, tense the whole face, tense your mouth, different parts of your face, squint the eyes, and then release. And it's a wonderful way to release the tension that is trapped in your body. Okay, that's where the emotions and the feelings go. There is a connection. So becoming aware. And then the second is accepting. And accepting, again, so if this is thinking brain and feeling brain sitting at the table, right? This is the part where thinking brain turns and acknowledges that the feeling brain is the driver. Hey, I acknowledge you. I see you. You are the driver here. And I want to hear you out. I want to hear what you have to say. So we become attuned. We accept that we are feeling beings. We don't want to push that aside or, think that is bad. We just want to accept that, accept how we're feeling in that moment. Am I feeling sad? Am I feeling disappointed? Am I feeling ashamed? Am I feeling upset? What is it that I am feeling in that moment? Name it. Name it, say it out loud. So it just allows you to just name what's happening without trying to rationalize or create a story around it or judge it in any way. So we're just accepting how we're feeling, and also we're taking responsibility for how we feel. So this gets to the blaming part. So we take away, so we're kind of minimizing our tendency to blame when we take responsibility. So I allow myself to feel, to accept my feelings, and at the same time, I do not try to blame others for how I feel. I accept that my feelings come from within me as reactions to whatever it is that's coming at me, right? But the feelings are what's coming out. So I need to take responsibility for that. And that's important, not as a way of shifting the blame to you. That's not what it's for. That's not why we're doing that. So again, we're trying to cut out blame altogether. The reason why we're taking responsibility is so that we can take action. So we can take action to help ourselves. Because if we blame, if we put the responsibility on another person, then it means that we have no agency. It means that we can't get ourselves out of this. It means that there isn't anything we can do to help ourselves. We have to rely on the other person to help us get out of it. We know that that's not how it works. All right. So when we take responsibility, that's what we're doing. We're empowering ourselves. We're not blaming ourselves. Okay. The next step here is to allow and ask. So, allow. Again, allowing the feelings, allowing yourself to feel, right? Allow yourself to feel, to cry. If you're angry, to be angry, of course, without lashing out in a negative way, but just allowing yourself to feel, but also allowing yourself to ask, for help, to ask for guidance, to pray, ask God for help, to ask trusted people in your life, to help you to figure out what's happening, and maybe they may have some insights and perspectives, especially the people closest to you, and they may be able to offer some insights as to maybe even just to help you recognize how stressed you are. You may think it's all in your head, but then when another person is able to reflect that back to you, to say, yeah, it's, I've been thinking about you, I've been worried about you, how are you doing? And then allowing others to speak into your life and to give you a perspective is very very useful, very helpful. Okay, and then the next step is to attend to those feelings that are coming up. So you're asking yourself, okay, what am I feeling? Is this a familiar feeling? Is this something that happens to me every time this thing happens? Am I catastrophizing? Am I making this feeling bigger? Am I making it bigger than, or amplifying it in a way that's not true to what's happening? Are my reactions outsized? Maybe someone, and again, this gets to, when we're in a heightened state of stress, any little thing can set us off, right? Somebody cuts you off in traffic and, road rage, right? So are your reactions disproportionate to what's happened? I like this. These next two questions. What is the truth, small t, right? What is the truth? And then there's another question which looks the same, but it's very different. What is the truth, with a big T, capital T? So what is the truth, small t? The truth, small t, is whatever story that you're telling yourself about this thing that happened, right? So again, you get cut off in traffic. What's the truth? The truth is this person is so disrespectful, and how dare them cut me off? Don't they? Whatever story it is that comes in. That's the truth, right? What is the truth, big T, is that person had no idea that they cut you off. They didn't even see you. So again, when you're going through something, it's a good idea to try to identify, what is the story I'm telling myself about this thing, and what's the truth, what's the objective truth about this. And we tend to find a bit of a gap that can be very, very helpful to us in dealing with stress. And to help us reframe the story, we can then use the truth, the big T truth, to help us reframe our thinking, reframe our story to one that's more empowering and one that helps us rather than makes us feel powerless. All right. What do I want? Right? What is it that I want? What are my feelings saying to me? What am I not getting? What do I want? And again, this might be a question that we struggle to ask because we might suppress that. We think, well, it's not my place to want anything right now. There's so much bad stuff happening in the world. I got to take care of people. I shouldn't be thinking about myself. Well, when we do that, because we all have needs, regardless of who we are, we all have needs. And so when we suppress that, what happens is that it pops up in different ways, right? It pops up in these negative emotions, resentment and anger, because we're not tending to our own needs. We're just trying to focus on others, which of course we need to focus on others, but we can't do that to our own detriment, because that's what happens. So we need to circle back and deal with this question. What do I want? What do I want? What do I need? Okay. And then the last question I have here, what are my options? And I think these two questions are also very powerful. And the last question is very powerful, because when we're in a state of stress, fight or flight, or we tend to narrow our thinking, we tend to put blinders on, because we're very focused on the task at hand, fighting or fleeing. So everything else goes away. We tend to narrow our options, all right? And, and so we make bad choices because we don't consider what are my options here, right? When I get into a heightened state, then maybe my option narrows to lashing out, blaming, right? That's how I fight. But if I consider what are my options, how else can I deal with this, then we start to open up. So this is where we move into act. When we think, okay, what are my options? What else can I do to deal with these negative feelings? The things that we come up with when we ask that question then can become part of our care package, what we call the care package. And this is where you get to write down all the things that you can do to tend to your needs in that moment. So, and these are all the simple things that we all know we should do but don't do. But they work. They work when we do them. It's not rocket science. And it's not complicated. All you need to do, and by the way, it's good that it's not complicated, especially now because of the great restrictions that we have right now. So maybe in normal times that care package can have going to the movies, going out to a restaurant and having a nice expensive meal, or going to the gym, or taking a mini vacation, going for a weekend to Mexico, something like that, right? Those things, those are wonderful things that we can do, but those things aren't available to most of us right now. So, but thankfully, thank God, the very small things that cost nothing, that takes 5 minutes, can be just as effective, even more effective, doesn't cost you a thing. So you can take a walk. You can read something, read a positive, inspiring book. You can meditate. You can pray. These are all tried and true. All tried and true. You can journal. You can have a gratitude journal. You can play with your kids, right? Play with your kids. Yesterday I came home not feeling very good. Let's just say, in a bit of a bad mood, and my kids were kind of hounding me. Dad, can you come play with us? Come play with us. And I dragged my feet. Going through the house, I could find things to keep me in the house. The dishes need to be done, or the floor needed to be swept up. And I kept finding things to do, and the kids kept coming in saying, Dad, where are you? You said you were coming. I'm coming. I finally go, and we play together for a good half an hour. My state completely changed. I went from being in a bad mood to feeling energized, feeling good, feeling grateful. And all it took was playing with the kids for a few minutes. They felt great, and I felt great. That's all it takes. Um, so it can be hard to motivate ourselves to even do small things like that. And I say small, quote unquote, but this isn't small, right? Um, these little actions that we take can have huge um, benefits down the road. Certainly, building relationships with your family, or just feeling a sense of balance, feeling a sense of well-being. So it can be hard to get ourselves there, even to do these small things, just to go outside and take a walk when we're in a state of negativity. But we have to trust in the process. Trust that if you put on your jacket, put on your shoes, put on your left foot, and then your right foot, or your right foot and your left foot, whatever order you do that in. Just put one shoe on, put the other shoe on, open the door, get outside. Just do one thing at a time. Just get out, even if you're not feeling like it. And I almost guarantee you'll come back feeling a little bit better. So that's it. This care cycle. So this is a tool that helps the thinking brain and the feeling brain to work together, right? That thinking brain can help you come up with ideas. So you can use your thinking brain, acknowledge the feeling brain. The feeling brain acknowledges that the thinking brain has something to bring to the table too. They work together. The thinking brain can help come up with ideas for the care package. What can you do? What would your own care package look like? Take a moment, take some time, and sit down and go over what your own care package would look like. And then the feeling brain has to buy in. It has to buy into what's being, what's on offer. Otherwise, it won't work, right? So we have to tend to our feelings. So that's it. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask and fire away. But I certainly hope that this model will be of benefit to you. It's actually on my blog. I should have maybe posted a link here. But if you would like a copy, you can always email me, salon@spirituallivingforbusypeople.com, and come up with your own care package. So thank you for joining me on today's broadcast. Let's see if I can get out of this. So thank you for joining me today, and I hope that you take time to tend to your emotions, tend to your feelings, because that's the way that you will be able to release them, not by pushing them down, or by ignoring them, because it's the feelings that's driving the bus. So we don't want to ignore our feelings. That's not a good idea. We need to acknowledge, and we need to work together. The thinking brain, feeling brain work together to help each other. So thank you so much, and I will look forward to seeing you on the next broadcast. Take good care.